acted by Avijit Dutt.
The uncomfortable, the offensive, the unmentionable are just punctuations of truth. But to encounter it, we need to understand it, to discuss it. If you find it reprehensible, you may leave. But if you're all right with the facts, the politically incorrect, the unspeakable, I may begin. Once the dust had settled in the native lands, with new boundaries drawn out by a dysentery-struck judge called Radcliffe, driven on by a mendacious Mountbatten, and much blood had been spilled from South Asia's open arteries, I was born in the land of the rising sun. No, not Japan, but in the northeast of India. When the sun rises here, the rest of India is still writhing in their pre-dawn dreams. We take great pleasure in informing you the first thing in the morning that we have decided to employ you. First thing in the morning, when we start our morning. Mr. Singh in Chandigarh is dreaming of the new golf set that he must acquire. Mrs. Singh is dreaming of a new trainer and her yoga butt. In Ahmedabad, Mr. Patel is dreaming of his son-in-law building motels in the US of A. In Kolkata, Mr. Biswas is dreaming of the house his father built being turned over to the builders. And in Chennai, with each one of Mr. Rajnikant's snores, a new hit film is being planned. So while the rest of India is dreaming of prosperity, we in the Northeast have begun our day in earnest to eke out our survival. Even if tied together in the same time zone, forcibly. Ore Majhi re Once upon a time, not so long ago, the boats linked Chittagong and Calcutta in undivided Bengal. This was the lifeline for Sylhet, Dhaka, Chittagong, even far off Burma. Barges and launches traverse the rivers Padma and Brahmaputra, and the food served on board. You sift spices and turn on a quick fire. And the fires were tended by the Mog Parwa cooks. The Sahib's kitchens opened out to us for we cooked with all kinds of meat. That was the beginning of our mythology. We literally borrowed from their recipes and added it to our treasure chest. Many would call it hijack, but we were just building a new way. And more people liked it. Consider Panthras. No member of the panther family. Batter fried meat rectangles or Gualanda steamer chicken. These made us immortal. The Mog cooks. We were originally Muslims and maybe even pirates, I'm told. And then we converted to Buddhism and relocated from Chittagong, leaving behind our Islamic roots. But not really. For my childhood was enriched with tales of the seers of Chittagong or the talking dolphins. And the Rangamati was a recurring symbol of mystique. Even now, dogs, cats, even big fish speak to me. I'm not ashamed to admit. When the sky goes dark and the thunder rolls and the dogs stretch their necks and their ears prick up, I know, lashing rain will follow. My mother would scold me, "You fill your head with all this rubbish." But I had an unshakable faith in the voice of the unspoken. Left to my desires, I would fly with the wind to a mosque in search of a Sufi saint, maybe a fakir, a baul bending notes, clamber up a tree where the Petni lives, or maybe drop into my friend and neighbor Sajid's house. It was in Sajid's house that I first encountered the sorcery of fragrances around food. Food in my father's kitchen was cooked in the barakoti, out of bounds for us. But later his skills just blew me away, but more about that later. Where I'm headed, I've been told to keep silent. But what do I do with all the questions bouncing around in my head? If I don't give it voice, I feel I will explode. Sajid was my dear friend, and he told me of things that amazed me. Sajid's father was the driver to the south of the tea garden, Rangli Hart, where my father, he was the cook, but he was also the local drunk and responsible for the general cheer in the garden. A sense of humor my mother never shared. She always wanted to keep him in the straight and narrow, constantly wanting to bring John Butler into a nice moral position, while filling us with tales about his skills. The pressure told on my father. Enough of an excuse for him to drop off the wagon of restraint and indulge. Love and inordinate attention is the source of deep discontent. Sajid's father was the technical superior. But it had no way into the inner house of the Saab, where John Butler, my father, lorded it over. This led to some friction between the two, but it never affected Sajid and my relationship. Sajid was my senior in school, my protector, my role model. I looked up at him. His family had a tragic interlude. His father passed away. The garden looked after him through his final year in school, and then they shifted to Delhi, where his mother's family lived. And his fortunes, they went up and up and up. Sajid became a star in Bollywood without any family connections or sugar daddies. He was the first actor to publicly endorse steroids for the body perfect. And the rags raged about him, his riches, his affairs, and his misdemeanors were reported with compassion, a nudge and a wink, and they all loved him. They said how true he was to his roots. But I was shocked. I was shocked that my outspoken hero of my childhood could be so silent about the narrow-minded takeover of his faith, about the Islamic fundamentalists, much like the rest of the industry, who don't stop to talk about anything else but not this. Something like the brandishing of the flag of supranationalism that the majoritarians are doing, while shutting their eyes at their lumpen followers. Misguided. They have been mute for many centuries. Now they've found a voice. Not since Adiguru Shankaracharya has there ever been such a resurgence. True. Consider what happened to W. W turned into an orphan when he was 6 months old. My mother dragged me to meet him. The child loved me. He came to my lap and he refused to leave. If anyone tried to take him away, he started wailing. But there was a distinct smell about him that reminded me of Saab's breakfast. One morning, I had gone to the Barakoti to take lessons from my father because I had an exam, and the Saab's breakfast was in the frying pan. Oh, the rich aroma. I got it out, but kept it a secret because after all, W was adopted by the local pracharak and his family. Much, much later, the pracharak crossed swords with me. अरे तुझे तो ये भी पता नहीं है कि अल्लाह यीशु या बुद्धा का नाम लेगा? I told him too. मुझे पता है आप W से क्यों चिपकते रहते हो? Because he smells of bacon. Absolute silence. They say the eye of the storm is always quiet. And then the mayhem burst. Result, W was thrown out of the Pracharak's family. Even that didn't cure me. I realize that my tongue runs away with me, but what do I do? At least I realize it. You start dying slowly if you do not travel, if you do not read, if you do not listen to the sounds of life, if you do not appreciate yourself, you start dying slowly. If you kill your self-esteem, if you do not let others help you, this is the holy grail. When my father put this on, everyone knew he was at work. No one dared disturb him, for there were stories about how he had chased somebody with a knife, which became a mythical dance of revenge. But this ability to single-mindedly focus on something and cut out the world also helped his single-minded devotion for his bottle. After work hours, of course, or on days when the servant named Sahib had gone to the neighboring garden, sometimes the spirit had its way and pulled back the hour hands of the clock. One evening, the servant named Sahib had gone to the club of the neighboring garden. The Sahib had driven himself. John Butler, my father, cracked open the bottle of rum that had come from Bhutan. Now, one thing you could never accuse him of. He would never touch country liquor. Whiskey was all right, but rum was his favorite potion. To call it firewater would be reducing its potency. A few drinks down and his voice a few decibels up, he decided to put a slap on the driver's face. Taking the keys of the jeep, he decided he was going to drive the jeep. Even now people talk of the magnificent leaps John Butler did with the jeep and then went speeding away to return over Mem Saab's prize-winning flower beds and plow into the papaya patch. Sajid's father jumped in to put off the ignition. और पता है वो जॉन बटलर ने मुझे थप्पड़ मारा है? कहता है देखा है मैं जहां मर्जी चला सकता हूं. Having said that, my father got off and went straight, no, not straight, went to the Saab's radio, put it on, and went and sat in the Saab's leather recliner, also known as the Rampur fornicator. With his legs splayed across the extended arms of the chair, you could forgive him for giving in to the soporific charms of an evening well spent. The radio played jazz, and it was loud. Everyone went about their work quietly. Even my mother never knew that what had happened till much, much later. Incontinence put an end to this well-planned soiree. At the club, the first is the finger food, and the Saab had a stomach cramp. He looked at the water closet in the club and he decided, no, have to drive back home. Exercising great restraint, they came back home, but the tragedy at home couldn't be wished away. John Butler was not fired. He must have been a very good cook. Maybe it was his smoked hilsa, field of fish, Breathe in deep and connect with it. Now massage it in one direction only, from the tail up. Sprinkle some vinegar. Continue massaging. The sour smell will set your teeth on edge. Now cover it with a muslin. Massage it in the same direction. And sit back and watch. You will see the bones move. Wait. Do not do anything. You will see the cloth rise as if of its own volition. Now, press down the cloth at the head and unpeel the muslin, and the bones are all out. Now marinate the fish. And prepare for the smoking. Light the busa with some jaggery and puffed rice and smoke the fish. When you serve it, the Sahib and his guest will abandon the sterling silver and be sucking their fingers. My new employer has a special fascination for Hilsa. Not every day, but just when his whim takes him over. I mean, as the President of the Republic, he has a right to. I'm not complaining. Most professions would have retired me at my age, but the cook, the cook gets better with age. Till, of course, his eyes lose their luster, or the hearing becomes too selective. The Babu who came to interview me warned me, remember, your silence will decide the longevity of your employment. He didn't want to taste my food. He didn't want to see my preparation, but my silence will determine the longevity of my employment. Fair enough. I shall trap the storms inside my heart and tie it together with bands of silence. I shall not be provoked. Pornography, provocation, but I shall not be provoked, invoked, revoked. But I shall not be proscribed. Let it be. Where I'm headed, the media has spun a new nomenclature, rape capital. Doesn't matter that populations or countries with populations which are 1/3 ours have 300% more rapes, but even they point their fingers, behave. Consider this. Last year, pornographic content was accessed 700 times in Parliament in England. An English filmmaker of indeterminate talent used this as a leitmotif in her film. We banned her and made her far more important than she was. Travel advisories went out. Pepper spray. Pepper spray started selling like hot cross buns, and women arrived with armor-resistant clothes, ready to repel. But what happens about that adage of, Romeo doesn't get his Juliet? All I want to do is appreciate and look. But the courts have determined, if you look for more than 6 seconds, it stands for harassment. Fair enough. The rapist and me, you cannot make a difference. So the scrotum scratching individual and I are the same in the law's eyes. Well, actually, come to think of it, I would invoke Manu's dictum. Cut off the fingers of the sexual predator. Would you believe it? It is still in prevalence in some parts of the world, like Thailand. No wonder there's a cottage industry of doctors who have learned how to sew back the penis. I'm getting carried away. But what do you do in today's India, where murderers get titles of Gaurakshak, and the state levies taxes to continue this vigilantism? Anti-Romeo squads harass, and the Gaurakshaks prosper. We must not eat, we must not drink, we must sing songs that are determined to be nationalistic. We must, else we are bust. When the bullying stick becomes state-sanctioned, and it is used indiscriminately without worrying about whether it leaves behind bruises or is fatal, they choke with fear. What stops them from pulling out a gun to shoot down a dissenting voice? At the heart of Hinduism is the Bhagavad Gita. 700 verse strong debate on war. Will that even be allowed today? The new order that have considered themselves the self-styled owners of the Hindu faith have forgotten a vital thing. That tvamasi, naiti, naiti. Not you, not you. This was the same party that colluded with the British, that was too scared of the British to rise and protest, that didn't allow its members to join into the independence movement. They made deals saying, release me from prison and I shall show you who are the voices that were asking for independence yet. The Babu who came to interview me warned me, don't let your tongue run away with you. Fair enough, but I believe I should share. Share what is precious to you. Share what is not. At least they will know that you were there. They say that we are going extinct. So I've taken it on myself to share our recipes, our menus with everybody. Well, not everything, but for the truly interested, you can read between the lines and we create our masterpieces. But I guess I shouldn't worry because my daughter has become a cook. Well, not a cook, she's a chef. Who will take a chef called butler seriously, Baba? True. So she depends on theatrics and chemistry, nitrogen spheres and smoke and maybe mirrors. One day, maybe she'll get her self-esteem back and recreate our masterpieces. The Sahibs never failed to remind us. I say, John Butler, your dishes are nothing but recreations of the very British dishes. Consider this. I mean, the coverage cutlet becomes Kavi Raji. You're just plain thieves. Why don't you accept it? That's rich. The pot calling the kettle. The first Indian word to enter the English lexicon was the colloquial word loot, meaning plunder. It financed the Industrial Revolution and the wars. What started as corporate plunder soon became state-sanctioned pillage. For the First World War, we put in £1 billion and 100,000 people died, yet no mention of it. Oh, they are building a monument, yes. They're building a monument for animals. Maybe we are included. The Second World War was even worse. Food produced here was diverted for the war effort. Result, the Second Bengal famine. Over 3 million people died, and pitiable voices hung in the air in Calcutta. Ma ekটু ভাতের ফ্যান দেবে, মা একটু ভাতের ফ্যান দেবে. Too far for England to hear. When Churchill was told, he said, I hate the Indians. They're a beastly people with a beastly religion. The famine is their fault. Why did they breed like rabbits? Correct. So, we need a state that tells us how to build the right kind of nationalism. A nanny state that tells us, do not veer from the road that is made out. Do not lift your voices nor your eyes in case you give offense. You do not eat, do not drink, sing in tunes that are decidedly nationalistic. You must, else I protest. I sing the song of freedom, and I wish I was born in another tongue. The sad questions, the weightage of which we must accept. Speak what you must, not what you ought to say. You will not have to say anything, the Babu said. True. I would rather not be fossilized in Lutyens' corridors. I will not go to the Rashtrapati Bhavan to become the president's chef. I will sing my lone song, inure myself to the brutality, sink my head in the sand with shame, and pretend none of all this is really happening.